Now, what's more amazing than that somebody would invent a story like that is that nobody noticed that was a phony story. People thought, yeah, that seems like a reasonable thing somebody might do, sure. Something's wrong here. This doesn't make sense in a free society. So I want to puncture some of this bizarre aura that surrounds both this man in particular and the Federal Reserve he headed in general. Now let's talk about a Nobel Prize winner in economics who actually deserved the prize, unlike certain people whose names we won't mention until later today. And that's F.A. Hayek. Now Hayek won the Nobel Prize for showing that central banks like the Fed, monopoly central banks created by government and that would be absolutely nothing without the government-granted monopoly privileges they have, destabilize the economy. Forget all this mythology about what wonderful stabilizing agents they are. To the contrary, since we've had the Fed, when you compare the number of panics and crises we've had, it has doubled since that time. So don't give me the, it's a wonderful stabilizer. That's a whole lot of propaganda. Hayek, it's significant that he wins a Nobel Prize because Hayek is saying the exact opposite of what the Nobel Committee would want to hear. They don't want to hear that the whole central banking thing is a big racket that destabilizes rather than stabilizes the economy. So it's very significant he wins at all because he's saying the exact opposite of what they would like to hear. Now, anybody can understand Hayek's argument. Well, again, with the exception of certain recent Nobel Prize winners, but anybody in this room, anybody watching on television, anybody can understand this. And if you really want to understand what happened to the economy and why it is completely, even laughably bogus to blame this on the free market, I suggest just this 2 minutes, you'll find, hey, wait a minute, this makes a lot of sense. In fact, I'm happy to say I spoke at the University of Colorado at Boulder a few months ago. And I didn't realize, dumb me, I didn't know until I got there what Boulder's reputation was. That, you know, they're kind of on the political left. I didn't know that. You know, they invited me to speak, so I'm going. And the room was full, I was happy to see, on a Friday night. So, I mean, I don't care what your political outlook is. If you're coming to an economics lecture on a Friday night, you get a pass from me. So these people were there, and a lot of them were Obama supporters, and I thought, I'm not getting out of here alive. But as it turns out, afterward, they thought, you know, hey, you made a good presentation. I got email later about this. You made a good presentation. You made us think, you know, we don't see what the argument against what you're saying is. I did a show with a left-wing host in advance of an appearance in West Virginia, Howard Monroe. Had 10 minutes to explain Hayek's theory. So it's not me. It's not like I'm some genius. I'm just explaining Hayek's theory. So in 10 minutes, he said, wow. He said, you know, I was expecting to hate you. Instead, you know, you make a good case. And then finally, the guy who reads the audio book of Meltdown. And this guy's got the greatest reading voice you can imagine. You know, it's like he's like that guy from the movies who just died, you know, in a world. You know, he's that kind of voice. He's an Obama supporter, too. And he said when he got Meltdown, he thought, oh, here we go, another bit of right-wing propaganda about the free market. And then he wrote to me and said, I have to admit, you make a strong case. So it is nice once in a while that even though we have disagreements with people, we can be civil and we can listen to what we're saying. You know, isn't this a wonderful break from what usually takes place? Well, anyway, here's Hayek's argument, very, very simply. Hayek wants to know, why is it the economy moves like this? How come we're all doing great, then everybody's in the toilet, and then great, and then up and down? Why is this happening? I mean, this is, you know, kind of an interesting question, isn't it? Why is this happening? Why is there what the economist Lionel Robbins called a cluster of error, where all of a sudden people who had been great forecasters of consumer demand turn out to be terrible at it, all at the same time, in the same direction? Like, why would this happen? This demands explanation. The market weeds out people who stink at anticipating consumer demand. Those people make losses and or go out of business. And people who are good at it expand and get more control over capital. So at any one time, the market is in fact promoting people who are the best at doing this. So why are these people selected by the market for their forecasting ability? Why are they all so bad at the same time? Good question. Very rarely do you get an answer to this question other than a psychological one that, oh, well, you know, there are animal spirits that sometimes make them want to invest a lot, and then it turns around they don't want to invest so much, and whatever. I mean, what a totally anti-intellectual, unsatisfying explanation this is. Hayek says, no, there are real factors that account for why this occurs. And now Hayek focuses on interest rates. And if you're inclined to say, okay, interest rates, there's no way, this is too complicated, whatever, I'm telling you, interest rates are so important. I mean, you're going to have a dream tonight about a giant interest rate symbol chasing you around because you're going to realize the significance of this. What Hayek is saying is that, you know, interest rates are not just arbitrary numbers. You can't just change them and expect nothing to happen. I mean, we would all like to have low interest rates in the same way that we would all like to have milk sell for 5 cents a gallon. But we only want that if it occurs spontaneously. If the government makes milk 5 cents a gallon, that doesn't mean we're all going to get cheap milk